thankful this morning. Time permitting us, we would have highlighted reasons that cause for our thankfulness. We will, however, not be doing that, believing that you are also with a reason to thank the Lord for being here this morning, to thank the Lord for the privilege to fellowship with one another. That you are alive today calls for thanking God. God who began with us from the very beginning of the year and raised very critical issues before us, bringing us to this point where we are trusting His grace to usher us into the new year. He again brought to fore the fact that there is joy to the world. Is that correct? There will be joy to the world. Is that correct? Is there joy to the world? Would there be joy to the world? We were told that the God of prophecy who prophesied, who foretold of this joy, is not a man. And so when he says something, he sees to it that it comes to pass. He followed it up to establish that which was promised. And on the premise of his person and integrity, yes, we will not be wrong to say there is indeed joy to the world. This morning we are looking at this joy, how it will get over to the world, how the world will benefit of this joy through the one who is more than a baby. Who is more than a baby? Some years back, a secular musician asked a question when there was clamor for the righteous to rule over the earth. When there was quest for righteousness to become the subject of authority. So when Majek Fashek look at this clamor and call for righteousness and the righteous people to rule over the earth, he asked, where are the righteous? I don't know what motivated him to ask where the righteous who were supposed to rule over the earth would be found. Could it be that over time people come bringing beautiful programs, encouraging people to support them and their administration, and at the end of it, people felt more disappointed than they came in? I wouldn't be in position to answer what was on the mind of Majek Fashek. But if you will hear deeply and appreciate what he was saying, can we truly find the righteous who will rule over the earth? If the quest is for joy to the world and the desire to have people get acquainted with this joy so that the work of incarnation will not be in vain. How do we bring this to fruition? How do we make the best of that which has been placed before us? Joy to the world. That is the declaration. That was the declaration. That was the desire of God from the very dawn of history. The creation narratives attest to the fact that when everything God made was good, bringing the reality of joy, hope, and fruitfulness. But as the story progresses, the goodness was lost. Every other thing that was said to be good was no longer good. Even the man whom God created in his image and was said to be good was found to be lacking something. Hence the need for heaven to do something about his need, about that which was lacking in his life. Shortly after this need was met, every other thing crumbled. We are looking at the fact that the source and true source of joy to the world comes and will come only from this one who is more than a baby. Can't you see it? Haven't you heard? Are you not aware? That Christmas is impossible without creation. Christmas is impossible without the fall. Without the reconciliation. The message of Christmas will not be the message of hope. The hope that was shattered, the hope that was no longer there, thereby bringing a ruin to humanity. Talking about joy to the world, you're talking about the hope of pardon, the hope of peace. Peace with God, which ushers in the hope of glory. The Christmas story began way back in Genesis chapter 15, where the prophecy was foretold of the seed of a woman that will become the basis through which the people living in darkness, the gloomy states they found themselves in, the hopelessness to which engulfed them when they lost the image of God, the fellowship with God, the joy and the gladness of being in fellowship with God, that was taken away. That presented that someday there will be hope. That's where Christmas began. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, which was fulfilled way back in Luke chapter 2, verse 7. But in between the foretold story of hope, of redemption, of salvation, to the point that the one who was born more than the child finally came when the incarnation was already here. In between, what transpired? What was the state of man? What was it that called for the need of joy to the world? The promised seed of the woman, which was traced to the seed of Abraham. And then you look at the core of Abraham, the sovereignty of God in it. It wasn't Abraham who was good in himself, who was an attraction that God would pick him. It was the choice of God. Go down to Isaac, go down to Jacob. You will still see that the basis of this hope that calls for joy to the world is an act of God. It's not an act of man. Come to think of it, the instructions were clear. Do not touch up this tree. Don't tamper with it. The day you eat of it, you will certainly die. Having ate of it, instead of him to be killed, he was restored back. Isn't that a thing of joy? Can't you see it? That this is love, the best of love. The love that brings forth the mercies of God that are new every morning. Come to think of it, the guy who was supposed to die rather has the chance to live again. He never worked for it. He never asked for it. God at work, bringing forth a child born of a virgin who will become light unto the darkened world. In Isaiah chapter 9 verse 2, we are told that the people who sat in darkness, who were living in darkness, whose thinking and plans were overtaken by darkness, nothing good was found in them. The very best of their efforts were regarded as filthy rags in the sight of the Lord. These people who had no hope suddenly became a hope, who will walk, who will encounter great light. A light that will shine through life. A light that will shine through their circumstances. A light that will turn around their fortunes. The people walking in darkness will see great light. In Isaiah chapter 11 verse 1, we are told that he will be a Nazarene, the stump of Jesse, the one that will sprout up. It looks as if the end has come, that everything has been devastated, but the unending grace of God, the sovereignty of God was at work. You remember when the heritage was passed on to Judah, the fourth child of Jacob. That was the time that the kingdom of hell ensured that nothing goes come out of it. Down to the point that this child who was born was to be excluded from the congregation until the 10th generation. Within that period of the waiting of exclusion, the people demanded for a king. And the protocol never allowed them to crown any king. At best, the captain in Saul was put in place. They were walking in great darkness. They had no hope. There was no assurance. That is why the incarnation story, a story of hope, a story of encouragement, a story of a people who will no longer walk in darkness. But the Spirit of God will rest on them in so special a manner that he will endow them with wisdom. He will give them understanding. The counsel of God and his power will continue to lead and guide them day by day. The spirit of knowledge that leads people to the fear of God which we are told is the beginning of every wisdom. When you are connected to this source, this wisdom, you are able to discern, to know times. You are able to know that you cannot do it on your own. And you come back depending on the one who was there, who is here, who will ever be. The one who knows the end from the beginning. The one who alone is able to bring great light out of a gloomy state, out of darkness. Unto him alone is able to make a child more than a child, who will in turn take the place of man. That is why we are told that for unto us a child is born. He had no need of humanity except your need and my need. So it was unto us that this child was born. This child was born at the fullness of time. This child was born meeting all the requirements of heaven and the demand of heaven. Remember, it was man that sinned. It was man that was to die. It wasn't God that had no need of salvation. And so he became that child who was given, conceived of the Holy Spirit, overshadowed that virgin by the power of the Spirit of God. No wonder he was called the son, child of the Most High God. He was a child given the humanity of God in the incarnation, the full humanity of Jesus the Christ.
Thank you for taking
and
us to
the
this
full
point
divinity
of
of
worship.
God. That
That
is
was going
why
to speak to us.
when the son,
So, Lord,
when
we
the
pray
child
that
was born, we are
give us
also
more
reminded
understanding
that the
upon
son
our
was
ears,
given unto us.
spiritual ears to
He
hear,
was given.
and eyes
He
to
came
see.
on his own. In
So
Revelation,
that
we
we
are
worship
told
this morning,
that he was slain
we also
even from the
receive from you
foundation
what
of the
you
earth.
have as we
At the
come
very
to
dawn
worship
of
you.
the beginning of beginnings,
I pray
he already volunteered
that the
himself,
Holy Spirit
availed himself,
will speak
that
to
lamb
each
that
and
was
every one of us
sacrificed.
here.
That is the basis
that's
to which
very
there will be
clear
joy
and still.
to the world. That is the
So that
basis
we
to which
understand
there will be righteousness. That's the
our
basis
thoughts,
to which there is
even as well
great
as
light, a light
Jesus'
that
mighty name we
evil
pray.
cannot
Amen.
overturn, the light that cannot be
Good morning.
extinguished by unrighteousness, the light
the Lord
that will
is
ever
praying for
be there in hearts of men who will accept of his salvation, who will accept of his lordship, who will accept of his wisdom. Such people will no longer walk and group in darkness. They will no longer grapple here and there in vanities of this life, but are people who will be rooted in the root of Jesse, that we arise according to Isaiah chapter 11 verse 10. We are told that this root of
quiet
Jesse will stand as a banner,
physically.
a banner of love over his people,
Quietness
shielding them,
within
guiding them,
takes
protecting them. They will be a people unto him. They will rally by him. They will be drawn by him. Take a look at the one who was more than a baby, that was hung on that tree, who remained there because of his love for you and I, who was given for you and me, who came so that you would do that which I wouldn't have been able to do for myself, that which you wouldn't have been able to do for yourself, that we will be drawn to him. When he was lifted and hung out there, he was able to come down. But so great the love he had for you, held him back. As much as he was overwhelmed, he could still say, let your will be done. There will be joy to the world when we get to understand that the eyes of the blind will be opened, not through the wisdom of this age. not because of how much we've been able to accomplish, but our blindness, our eyes and our blindness will be lifted up, will be opened because of the one who came more than a baby. Then we will be able to leap like deers. At that time, those with muted tongues will be able to shout in joy and acclamation of the one who incarnated, that there should be joy to the world. They will be able to move on, move forth, and it will come in such a way that will be regarded as water gushing out in the desert, streams and oases of love, and unquenching love. Look at the world around us, celebrating a miss, putting so much effort. How can we not see that we've been living amiss? How can we not see that he is more than a baby? The people walking in darkness will see great light. Those who were walking in the shadow of death, light will dawn on them. And they will come to a point of understanding that of a truth we couldn't have helped ourselves. That it is the grace of God which so made it that we could build as if we are good builders. Paul will say that it's only the grace of God so enabling me to do so. When you are connected to the source that brings joy to the world, when you are connected to the one who is more than the baby, you are able to find yourself at a point that you will no longer brag. At a point you will no longer feel proud, but you will only feel privileged that God could use so feeble a person like you, even for great works that will usher in light to the Gentile. A light that will bring revelation to the Gentiles. And the glory of God manifesting through his people. More than a baby, he will open the eyes of the entire world. More than the baby, he is indeed a gift of hope and love. Unto us this child is born, his humanity. Unto us this child is given. This child was there in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 following. We are told that God will make a pronouncement that let it be, it will be. In John chapter 1, verse 1 following, we are told that he was there with God from the beginning, and everything was made through him. Everything that is there is possible because of him, and there is never a thing, and there will never be any without him. So you see him at the center of it all. And I pause to ask you, have you found him as a hub that your life revolves on? Have you been privileged to know that he is more than a baby, but that he is actually the essence of your existence? God's gift to mankind came a total package, came in divinity, came in humanity. He has got everything. The work and person of this baby, more than a baby, is a wonderful counselor, source of every wisdom, mighty God, who is able to do exceedingly far above that which we could ever imagine and ask. Think about it. How could the water have parted when they in themselves were helpless, were trembling? They had no control of themselves. Behind them, enemies were closing in on them. The whole nation could have been wiped away. the one who is more than the baby, was able to sacrifice the Egyptians so they could live. That is the essence of joy to the world. That is the reason why you should celebrate. Anything other than this, you will be doing it amiss. So mighty, so able, that he could ask the sun to stand still, that the battle will be won. So able that that little oil will not run dry. So able that that dead child, being inspired by the woman who says it is well, turned out to be alive, and it was indeed well for her. That is joy to the world in darkness, when they get to know of this baby more than that which confronts you, than that which stands opposed to you. You will be able to connect to this joy. Joy to the world indeed, when we are able to get to this one who is mighty, the great counselor, who will guide us through life. No wonder he says, if anyone will want to come with him, who will walk in this great light, that person must deny himself, his intellect, his thinking, his wisdom. Let go of everything. Take up the cross. Follow him day by day, depending on him, going with him. Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life, is more than the baby. The life and the source of life, who came that we should live life in abundance. Who and his kingdom is yet coming forth, springing forth in lives of men and women who will accept of his salvation. The source of wisdom that doesn't need to be advised by any other person. Have you forgotten when the wise men of the Babylonian world, when the wise men of the Egyptian world could not interpret the dream for the king, but the source of wisdom, the wisdom that was given to Daniel, the wisdom that was given to Joseph, they were able to bring forth great light and understanding unto that which was concealed, unto that which others were not able to see. This child who was born, who is given to us, is indeed a total package that brings forth peace, that brings forth eternity, that brings forth the power of God, and the ability of helping us to see the sovereignty of God. This one who is more than a baby is Jesus in creation. Is Jesus the Savior through the fall? He is Jesus, the one reconciling us and our Redeemer. He is God's matchless plan for the fallen humanity. Joy to the world is only possible when you meet this one who is more than a baby. He is the gift of God to me. And I ask you, is he God's gift to you? When you accept of his salvation, when you accept of his lordship, then his kingdom will come into your life. You will truly receive of this born child, this given son, who was there from the beginning, who will yet be here, and forever he will be there. A kingdom that will not ever come to an end. What a great privilege. What a great offer that we should be partaker of eternity with him in greatness, in joy, in hope, in redemption, in every completeness. A total package, a gift worth celebrating, that is qualified to bring joy to the world. Wrap in the one more than a baby. Let us pray.